Welcome. You've got guest. Or really, we've got a guest. It's AOL co-founder, current chairman and CEO of the investment firm Revolution, and a big thinker about pretty much everything, Steve Case. He's got a new book out. It's called The Third Wave, an Entrepreneur's Vision of the Future. And Steve Case joins us from the Washington Bureau, New York Times bestseller. Congratulations. This is the kind the kind of book that lots of people interested in lots of different stuff are interested in. But it's really about where the world is, where the country is. And of course, the title, The Third Wave, begs the question. Just set the table a little bit for us. What was the first wave? What was the second wave? And now what is this third wave?
Well, the first wave was really focused on the internet. So the first wave was just building the internet, getting everybody connected to the internet. When we started, only 3% of people were online 30 years ago. Now, of course, everybody's online. The second wave in the last 15 years or so, building apps and services on top of the internet. So it's Facebook, it's Google, it's Twitter. And the third wave is really integrating the internet more seamlessly throughout our lives, throughout our society. Things like energy and transportation, food, healthcare, education. But the reason I wrote the book, it's going to require a different mindset and sort of a different playbook, what I call the 3 Ps, people, partnerships, policy, to really be effective.
So, Steve, let me ask you a question, just like get this into the realm of politics here. I have 2 questions that are related. One, you know, Donald Trump is a businessman by every metric, right? When you look at Donald Trump as a businessman yourself, as an entrepreneur, do you see a kindred spirit in Donald Trump? Is there a character there that you recognize and feel a kinship with?
Sure, at one level, because he's got that business entrepreneurial kind of background. But as you know, I kind of stay out of the politics side of things. I focus on trying to bring people together on policy, particularly around innovation and entrepreneurship. And frankly, I wish this election there had been more focus on innovation, entrepreneurship, economic growth, and job growth. We counted all the debates in the last year or so. There's 600 or 700 questions. Less than a half dozen were on these core issues of innovation, entrepreneurship, and that's a big theme of the book. I think we really need to make sure we remain the most innovative entrepreneurial nation, irrespective of who ends up being the next president or who controls the Congress.
Right. I'm not trying to drag you into the realm of politics where you don't want to go. I guess, this is my related second question.
Sure you are.
Well, my related second question is, these are 2 human beings running for president, Hillary Clinton and Donald Trump. As an entrepreneur who wants to create a climate that's favorable to entrepreneurship, right? When you look at the 2 of them and what they have said so far in this campaign, how do you evaluate them, relatively speaking? Not saying who you endorse or anything, but how do you evaluate what they've said about these topics on policy that matter from an entrepreneur's point of view?
They haven't said that much on these issues. Again, on both sides. It has not really been a big focus of the campaigns and has not been a focus of the debates. Hopefully that will change in the months to come, because I remind people, particularly here in D.C., that 250 years ago, America itself was a startup. It was just an idea. And the reason we lead the way is because of the work of entrepreneurs, first in the agricultural revolution, then the industrial revolution, more recently this technology revolution. So we need to get the focus more on these issues of what does it take to remain the most innovative entrepreneurial nation. There's a lot of things around regulation, a lot of things around immigration, a lot of things around investment incentives, things I talk about in the book. We need more focus on that.
Steve, one of the reasons people are so attracted to the book and so excited about it, it does have a vision for the future. But I want to ask you about the present. In these third wave realms, you mentioned some healthcare, food, energy, et cetera. What's a current example of something that's kind of foreshadowing the future, where the internet is playing a big role, either in a specific industry or a state or a project, where you'd say that's what things are going to look like more and more down the road?
Well, something is happening right now in some schools, but not most schools, are more personalized, adaptive approaches to learning. Places like New Orleans, they reinvented their school system over the last decade. There's a lot of innovation, what's called education technology, or ed tech, in places like New Orleans. Another is there's a lot of interest in the area of smart cities. Things like autonomous cars are part of that, but some big companies like IBM and GE are focused on that. A lot of startups are focused on how do we move around cities. More and more people are living in cities. How do we manage those cities in a smarter way? That's going to be another big theme. So it really cuts across all sectors of the economy. Healthcare is 1/6 of our economy, and there's a lot of work now in terms of keeping people healthier, dealing with chronic disease, being more precise about diagnosis for life-threatening diseases. So this third wave is going to really cut across some really important aspects of our lives. Not just about the technology. This is where the internet kind of meets the real world.
Let me ask you, Steve, about, it's often said that most of the innovation that's going on in government is going on at the state and city level, right? So are there places that you can point to across the country where there have been innovations in how government works, and particularly in innovations that create a better climate for innovation, that could be adapted to the federal government easily?
Sure. And first of all, I should say one positive thing on the federal government is 4 years ago, the Congress passed in a bipartisan way the Jobs Act, Jumpstarting Our Business Startups Act, with the work of the White House and the Congress. And that actually, one provision around crowdfunding went into effect this week. So now entrepreneurs all across the country can use the internet to raise money for their company. I think it could be a game changer for people not in Silicon Valley or New York, but other parts of the country. But in terms of specific places, last week I was in Colorado. The governor there, we spent some time with some of the entrepreneurs. There's, the unemployment there is under 3%. There's lots of cranes in Denver building new buildings, and they figured out a good way to work together, the government and the private sector working together. I think we'll need more of that in this third wave. I think the innovators will need to talk to the policymakers, whether it be at more the local level or the federal level, if we're going to really remain the leader as we move into the third wave.
Steve, I'm obsessed with taking the GDP from 2% to 3.5%. I think it's just the biggest challenge.
We need to do that.
What's holding us back?
A lot of things are holding us back, but the most important one is we need to focus more on entrepreneurs everywhere. Right now, last year, 75% of venture capital went to California, New York, and Massachusetts. 75%. The other 47 states fought over the other 25%, and about 90% of that went to men. About 1% went to people of color. So we need to level the playing field across the country and make sure everybody with an idea has a chance. The reason that's so important is if you look at the data from like the Kauffman Foundation, all the job growth comes from these young startups, not from the small businesses, not from the big businesses, from the young, fast-growing startups. If you want to really drive economic growth or drive job growth, you've got to focus on the startups, but not just in a few places, everywhere all across the country.